Hey folks, we're sponsored today
by Colony,
USA Network's new original series from the executive producer of Lost. Imagine an occupied world where everyone must choose a side. If your city was no longer your own, who would you trust with your life? Where would you run? And what would you risk to save the ones you love? Colony, starring John Holloway from Lost and Sarah Wayne Callies from The Walking Dead.
It's a new original series, and it premieres Thursday, January
14th at 10, 9 Central, only on USA Network.
Go to colonytv.com for more.
Check. Hello? I'm here with David Murphy, my friend, in the office building where we both work and where we recently acquired new lobby furniture.
We did, and what lobby furniture it is.
I would say, so to describe them to you, there's like a couple of semicircle couches, then like a kind of bendy ottoman thing at the top, and then like a circular table in the middle. Like if you actually just were to draw an outline of it, it would look like maybe the design that should be on like a bad guy's helmet in a comic book.
It's very fancy, very like new age. You can tell they're going with the modern motif.
So I have actually not sat down in this on this couch yet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sit on the couch and we're going to review how it feels.
Okay, let's do it. All right, you're not going to do a countdown?
No, I'm just going right for it, man. Pull the Band-Aid right off. Okay, initial impressions.
Very firm, almost like a church pew.
Like a fancy church pew. Yeah. Though, it's not like a wooden one. I went to a Catholic church. They were severe, just planks, not even polished. Like you got splinters in your butt.
Is like what that Joel Osteen or whoever that guy is. That's like
this is a Joel Osteen pew. That's what this feels like. Except for that the fabric design is a little bit too scientific. So now I would say also we're talking about couch to table distance. Mm-hmm. Incorrect couch to table distance, right?
That's terrible. Because you can't even reach your foot out and touch it.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. If I had a beverage on this table, I would not be able to reach it. I'd have to I can't even reach it with my leg.
Yeah, you'd have to actually stand up.
So the table is aloof. It is at a hostile distance from the couch. Mm-hmm. And if we go over to the ottoman, which I think we should do now, actually a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, a little bit softer, but there's no back to it, so you can't lean into it.
Yeah, so it's maybe it's more about the pose that we're forced to adopt sitting in it that makes it feel more comfortable.
Maybe you can kind of like lean back and get a good core workout out of it.
Yeah.
We just did some yoga.
We just came from a yoga class, so our minds are really open toward this furniture. So
and our chakras are in a line from yoga. We're looking right out our third eye. Everything's good.
We're looking right out at our third eye at this table that is way too far away from the ottoman. I mean, it's a good 4 feet.
Yeah, I'd say that. 3 or 4 feet. But yeah, this furniture, like we mentioned earlier, is purely for aesthetic purposes. Is that the word? Aesthetic? Looks?
Yeah.
It's not comfortable. It's not laid out well. It just looks cool.
It's for people that are like waiting to apply for a job or something, or if the line at the cafeteria is too long. So it's not supposed to invite you to stay for a long time.
That's why it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So it actually serves the purpose it's supposed to.
That sucks.
Here we were. We're just ragging on this furniture, but it turns out it does exactly what it's supposed to. So if you had to rank this furniture on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rank it?
Looks-wise, I'd say it's probably a 7 or an 8. Mm-hmm. As far as comfortability and use, probably about a 2.
It's a solid New Hampshire 7. It's a Chicago 5. And comfort-wise, it's like a 2.5 or a 3.
Yeah, if a church pew is a 1, this is like a step or 2 above that. So yeah, 2 or 3.
If a church pew is a 1 and a Joel Osteen church pew is a 3, then this is a 2.5.
2.5.
Welcome to the last podcast. I'm your host, Zach Little. This episode is about bad ideas. If perhaps you're ever trying to bake a pie and the only thing you have to use for recipes are Joanna Newsom's song titles, your best bet is probably going to be peach plum pear. For something a little less sweet, maybe go with the sprout and the bean.
I'm intrigued by the possibilities of clam, crab, cockle, cowrie. Definitely one to avoid would be sawdust and diamonds. Great song, bad idea for a pie recipe.
I'll give you a little of the When the Saints Go Marching in a minor key, the like. Doug Cady was showing me that one time. He was my piano teacher. He died last week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Yeah. I have a lot of ideas. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. It usually takes me a while to figure out which is which. I can tell you right now at the outset that starting a podcast, well after everybody else has started a podcast, strikes me as a bad idea. But there's a freedom in bad ideas too. You know, if something's not going to work exactly as intended, that frees you up to kind of redefine success. I think I often have a lot more fun getting stuck in the middle of a bad idea than I do having a really good idea. In corporate America, they call that skill problem solving, but what we problem solvers hope they never figure out is that we're too lazy to go back and fix what we did wrong. We'd rather just live with it. We'll be back after these messages. Alright folks, today's podcast is sponsored by FakePodcastAds.com. Got a podcast with no sponsors? Want to prove you can seamlessly integrate ads into your content? Visit their website, FakePodcastAds.com. They're so good, even this ad's fake. Okay, so the fact... Shush, babe. Hey, why don't you leave the cat alone, okay? And why don't you come in here with me and check this out. Oh, can you hear that? Good shit. Come on, Shush. Up. All right, there you go. I guess part of the thing is a lot of my ideas don't ever get far enough for me to find out if they were bad ideas or not. Okay, so there's a note on my phone here from June 26th of 2013 at 1:56 p.m. and it just says, Storage Wars sketch, dead bodies inside. You figure somebody probably already got to that by now, right? There's another one here about an idea for a Sharknado sequel called Octopi Wall Street. There's also some notes here from a little theoretical concept I was working on. Maybe I was going to write it up for Scientific American or something. And it's about the idea that time travel really does exist. And the only reason that none of us have noticed is because the only way that you can time travel is by going to any karate place in America. And the only time that you can travel back to is 1994. I don't know if you ever looked into the window of a karate place, but it's all kids with bowl cuts and like oversized Nirvana t-shirts. And I don't know how you can explain that any other way. There's a drink recipe here for a Shirley Temple with alcohol. I called it a Macaulay Culkin. I've got lots of lists of band names. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to start this many bands. Here's one list in full. Mother Sauce. Fletch Reboot. New Teen Fiction. Jizz Calliope. Face Tattoo. Cock Turtleneck. Nude Teen Friction. Nut Milk. Pilot Season. Penis Riot. Pussy Dictatorship. Now this show's called The Last Podcast because, it's 2016. Enough already. No, but seriously, everybody and his brother already has a podcast. I figure there's a decent shot that there won't be any new ones after this. And that's a heavy responsibility. I could be the podcasting equivalent of that kid who dies at the beginning of Children of Men. And I don't take that responsibility lightly, and I want you all to know that I'm at least sort of qualified for the job. For about a year, I was the co-host of a radio program called An Hour and 60 Minutes with Zach and the Spoon on WEXP, which almost sounds like a real radio station, right?
You are listening to An Hour and 60 Minutes with Zach and the Spoon on WEXP, your LaSalle radio. We'd love to hear from you this morning at 215-951-1369.
Yes, especially if
My co-host, The Spoon, was known as The Spoon long before he ever co-hosted a radio show. So if you ever wondered how radio DJs get those names, it seems to just occur organically. They instinctively gravitate toward radio stations like swallows to Capistrano. Now, the show was on our college radio station, of course. It was an AM signal, and if I understand correctly, the broadcast region was roughly, I don't know, 400 square yards.
Is figure out a theme, a commonality throughout the 5 songs.
Of course, it didn't matter much because at the time I was at a Catholic college. Long story. We'll get to it later.
It's going to be so easy.
And the Spoon and I hosted our radio show at 10 a.m. on a Sunday. And this school was not a Catholic school in a bullshitty way at all. Everybody was in church. The most listenership we could really hope for was maybe a couple second-string priests hanging out in the rectory.
You'll double guess yourself right afterwards.
Yes.
Or like the kind of guy that only exists in cartoons.
And then when you're done,
like with
double
a
guessing and
little
second
earpiece
guessing yourself.
in his ear, sitting in the back of the church,
And eventually you'll get
trying
it,
to listen to the
probably.
game,
Yes,
but
but
accidentally
go with
picking
that
up our
first
show
instinct
instead.
because-
So yeah, doing a radio show at a Catholic college during peak church hours, not the best idea. An Hour and 60 Minutes was a great title, though. Almost better than the last podcast, but I'm not going to sign on for that kind of time commitment every week.
They're playing tonight.
We're all disoriented.
Yeah, so tell everyone about that.
We'll be playing tonight at the Khyber. I believe the show starts at 8 o'clock. We're playing first.
Get there early.
Get there early. We'll be having fun and, running around and making jokes. And the band's White Whale is playing. It's ex-members of the Get Up Kids.
Ah.
And
Oh, really?
Chuck Reagan from
Chuck Reagan.
Hot Water Music's doing an acoustic set, too.
He's doing an acoustic set, the singer from Hot Water Music.
Joe Rogan from Fear Factor.
Joe Rogan.
He'll be doing, he's
Joe
MC.
Rogan is everywhere. I don't know what he ever did to become famous.
Somehow he must have made a deal with the devil, something.
He was on that show.
News Radio?
He was on
News
News
Radio.
Radio.
Yeah, that's what
Terrific.
We were talking about that on the way over.
It's a terrific program. We love that show.
There's not a day goes by I don't talk about News Radio.
A weird but legit item on my bucket list is hang out with Mitt Romney. I just gotta see what that's like. That's like my skydiving. Okay, so in life, you gotta make decisions, right? We know that, otherwise alternate universes would never get created. And every decision leaves something behind. 2 paths have to diverge in every yellow wood, and not only that, there's also only so many hours in the day. Only so much time to walk around in the woods on paths in the first place. And, okay, so I like to do animation, even though I don't really know actually how to do it, and I never, watched cartoons as a kid, so I don't really have much of a frame of reference. That's kind of why it's fun. I like figuring it out. But it takes a long time, and there's some shit that I'm just never gonna get around to, and I gotta face facts. One of those is an idea I had for a claymation thing called Edison and Tesla BFFs. So, okay, let me take you now to Edison and Tesla's lab that they would have shared, apparently, in this cartoon.
Oh, Tesla, old sport. Come, you simply must view my latest Nickelodeon filmograph.
Later.
Oh, come on, cease your toiling for just a few moments.
No, thank you.
I really think you want to see this. It's my best film yet. Better than Man Walks By. It's a tour de force. I simply won't take no for an answer.
You know, I'm working on wireless electricity over here.
Nobody cares about your creepy murder radio, you weirdo. Come watch my film.
Fine. Then will you just leave me for an hour or so?
Sure thing, old sport.
Promise me you won't spread the murder radio thing around.
Oh, I can't promise that. It's too catchy. Okay, so you put your eyes here, and you turn this crank to move the film.
Yes, I know, it's fairly rudimentary.
Well, start cranking then, chap.
And then we would all see Edison's film, which was just gonna be him just waving his dick around. And obviously I would have had to animate that.
Oh.
Ha! I got you good. Ho, ho, ho! What a jape!
It's just your penis.
Yes, sir. In your very face in filmographic electromotion.
I've always wondered what you're up to in the lab.
Yes, it's mostly stuff like this.
The voice of Tesla in that was provided by Ryan O'Connor. Thanks, Ryan. There's a note from April 19th of 2014 that just says Connor Oberst and Winona Ryder. I think about the fact that those two dated a lot. That's actually my mantra when I meditate. I just say, Connor Oberst and Winona Ryder. Connor Oberst and Winona Ryder. It brings me peace. I know you're not supposed to share your mantra, but, a podcast is a very intimate setting. At one point, I was writing kind of a Frank O'Hara parody poem, and it's called Lana Del Rey Has Collapsed. And the first lines are, King Juan Carlos has abdicated the throne. This is the beginning of a Frank O'Hara poem. I had a dream recently that my grandfather was alive, but he only had one hand. I'm in Manchester, New Hampshire right now, trying to get out of this maze of a city after a bit of a disaster of an adult education class that I was just at. A class where a professor used multiple racial slurs in some kind of convoluted example about the limits of free speech. What kind of class was it, Zach? Was it a racism class? Actually, no. It was called 10 Tools to Keep Your Feedback and Conversations on Track. What are the 10 tools? Couldn't tell you. So I'm driving around Manchester. There's like a strip club I just passed called the Winona Social Club, which is a good name for a strip club. There's another like community building that's offering an adult coloring night. Manchester strikes me as a city that is trying really hard to stay warm in the coming winter. Alright, the signs for 93 are getting a little teasing at this point. I'm getting deeper and deeper into like the neighborhoods of Manchester, which are mostly charming. Although I will say, I just passed like a sort of dilapidated, maybe possibly semi-abandoned housing area that had a Carly Fiorina campaign sign out front. Ain't that America? There was another mass shooting yesterday, but trying to stay positive. Trying to be a positive person. I see a junction, but it doesn't look like 93. I'm gonna pull over. Well, I made it to 93. I'm just gonna be going in the wrong direction. I'm going on 93 north instead of 93 south. But you know what? Good enough. Fine. I'm getting out of Manchester, That's what's important. Do you know that some people around here in New Hampshire refer to Manchester as Manch Vegas? Doesn't that make you furious? Isn't that like people who say Target instead of Target? I don't like being so negative, but you know what? Sometimes one needs to vent a little spleen. And now I'm going to try to do this the old-fashioned way. I'm going to try to find my way to 93 South without looking at directions on my phone. Because it's retro and fun, and also looking at my phone clearly hasn't helped so far. A professor in the class actually had a useful term for that kind of thing. She called it failing forward. I'm hoping that, when she gets fired for using racial slurs, and then she finds a new career, maybe as a Republican presidential candidate, that will also qualify as failing forward. I'm using a big stuffed bear as a mic stand. So. I just read the 7-part Marvel Civil War comic collection, which is odd in that it has become totally politically incoherent in the years since it was published. I get the sense that it was intended as a parable about the 21st century security state, the NSA, and all that. It centers around Captain America and Iron Man having a dispute about whether or not superheroes should become federally registered, with Captain America taking the position that they should be able to operate autonomously, which at the time was the civil liberties metaphor. But reading it now, in the era of mass shootings and would-be vigilantes like George Zimmerman and the Oregon Militia, the idea that superhero sovereignty would scan as anything relating to a real human concern it's impossible. The gears of that metaphor just never find purchase with any kind of societal other gear. I think in general comic books fit in very oddly with politics. Like how X-Men were supposed to read as a metaphor for civil rights, first for black people and for gay people, but while taking place in a world alongside those real struggles. If the X-Men were real, in real life, they'd have pictures of themselves marching alongside Martin Luther King, and we'd all be like, yeah, but it was for your own rights, you dick. And like Magneto would have forced Farrakhan to change the name from the Million Man March to the Million Man and Mutant March. I tell you what though, would have made that Spike Lee movie Get on the Bus, very strange. Did you see the movie X-Men First Class? There's a scene where Magneto makes some reference to slavery, and it cuts over for a painfully long cutaway to the one black mutant bad guy, and it's such a strange moment of metaphor not tying that I'm surprised that the set didn't just fall down all around them when they filmed that scene. And also, do you remember how Christopher Nolan's Batman movies are sort of accidental fascist texts? Intermingling these things, it's a bad idea, is what I'm saying. Just stick to the bright colors and the Joseph Campbell bullshit, guys. Anyway. Here's a bad idea that I just thought of. New character. Dog catcher from New Zealand. Hey man, what do you do? Oh, mate, I catch digs. You do what? Do you dig ditches? No, I catch digs. Oh, you catch digs, like you find places for people to stay. We call that a real estate agent. Digs. Riff riff? No, I'm sorry, I really don't know. I had an idea that turned out to only be bad for financial reasons. I wanted to do something called Farmer's Market Insult Comic. We've got a farmer's market every Saturday here in the summer, and I wanted to set up a booth where I sold handcrafted artisanal insults. I think the way it was going to work was, for $1, you could just get a pre-written insult, catered toward farmer's market attending hipsters. And then for $5, I would craft one for you. You just have to go away for 45 minutes and come back and I'd be ready with your insult. And then, ultimately for a higher fee, maybe I would burn your insult into a block of wood or something. Now, it turns out that the farmer's market is not something you can just bring your own little tent to and set up shop. There's a whole association. You have to pay fees. It turned out to be bureaucratically prohibitive. But if anybody knows about a more libertarian farmer's market somewhere in the New England area, let me know and I'll give this a shot. I'll have to actually write all the insults though. I think I only have one so far. And this insult is written on a piece of paper in my notebook, and it says, "Hey buddy, the Lumineers called. They say they got a call from the 1890s, and the 1890s want their clothes back. So you should probably give that hat back to whichever member of the Lumineers you borrowed it from." It is 4:13 a.m., and I am awake and making lattes. Why, you ask? Well, because lattes are good. Okay, but why wake up at 4 in the morning, right? We decided it would be a good idea to hike to the top of a mountain that had a fire tower on top for extra height, before the sun rose one morning so that we could see the sun rise from the top of the mountain. So that's what we did. I'm on top of a fire tower right now, which dates back to the days when the only way that firemen knew if there there was any work to do was they just went up to a really high spot and looked around for smoke. I guess. And I know, once again, on this podcast, we are covering something that is better seen than heard about. But the metaphor was just too great to resist. The sun was rising. The colors were spread across the sky. Again, you got to just take my word for it. And you know, it was the start of something. I think it's happening now.
Yep, it's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
This episode of the last podcast featured the voices of David Murphy, Morgan Little, Alex Christensen, Ryan O'Connor, Christina Little, Karen Perkins, and Shoshana Orion Little. Our in-house organist is Morgan Little. Additional music provided by Jiz Calliope. Sound effects provided by AudioMicros.com. If you'd like to support this podcast, the best thing you can do right now is make sure you're subscribed on iTunes and comment and rate and do all of that and tell everyone you know to do the same.